Stereo Guitar Genius by Kim Tomsick, illustrated by Brett Hellquist. This is a great book. We've had this book since Dylan was little. Another classic we had in our in our home library. Just books that we read to him. Okay, how Les Paul engineered the solid body, electric guitar and rocked the world. So this would be Les Paul when he was younger. And these are hardcover books. They're really nice. So they have the same hardcover as the slip. From the time he was a kid, Les scrutinized his family's gadgets, tinkered in his father's garage, and took everything in his mother's living room apart. The phonograph, the piano, the player piano, the telephone, the radio. With his impressible curiosity and endless faith in what is possible, Les Paul created the world's first solid body electric guitar. Countless other inventions that have changed modern music and one truly epic career in rock and roll. In a 3-story schoolhouse near the Fox River in Waukesha, Wisconsin, children scrambled into the music room. Tambourines shimmied, drums boomed, and bells clanged. Little Lester loved it all. The punchy pluck of banjo chords, the bright twinkle of piano keys, and the rise and fall of notes. Lester couldn't read the music sheets. Those tracks of squiggly lines and black dots didn't make sense, but it didn't matter. The fun part was all the sounds he could make. At his after-school piano lesson, his teacher sighed and pinned a note to his shirt. He skipped all the way home. Boy, she looks just like my old piano teacher. What does it say? He asked, grinning from freckle to freckle. Well, Lester's mother said gently, it says you'll never be musical. Lester's shoulders sank. His eyes stung. Don't listen to her. His mother tore the paper into tiny pieces. You're going to be great. Really? You can do anything you put your mind to. Lester thought about that. That's exactly what my mother would say to me. You can put your mind to anything, you can do it, and the world is yours. He did a lot of thinking. One day, while he was stuffing newspapers for his paper route, his buddy Harry showed up wrapping wire around an empty oatmeal can. What are you doing, Harry? I'm building a crystal radio set. Well, that was interesting, so Lester gathered bits and parts and built his own crystal kit. Then he wired it right to the bed springs in his mattress for an antenna. Out from his home-built radio floated the warm drawl of guitar strings. Wowza. You see, this is back when kids had imagination. Now they just stare at a screen, a computer screen. So sad. To antenna, bed springs. There's the tuner. There's the oatmeal can. And there's the grounding, the ground wire. Telephone earpiece. So you can listen. So that's the ground. Goes all the way over here. And he picks up the sound. Wow, seems simple enough. Lester saved his paper route earnings until he had enough to order his very own guitar. Wow, look at the prices. As Lester opened the box, his finger hit one of the guitar strings. "You already sound great, Lester," his mother said. He didn't. Lester fumbled through the chords. His fingers floundered over the fretboard. He even blundered through the B notes. His hands weren't big enough to reach all 6 strings. So he removed one. And then he practiced and practiced until... She's a good woman because she kept him positive with praise. Till he could play the guitar and the banjo and even the harmonica. He sounded so slick that the manager of WTMJ invited him to play on the radio. "Mister," his mother said, "you don't know how good that sounds. I wish you could hear it like we do when you play on the radio." Oh, she was so proud of him. It's funny, we have one of these vintage radios. It's like a 1940-something replica. Lester wished that too, but he didn't own a recording device. It was the 1920s. Nobody he knew owned that sort of gadget, but that was okay. If he didn't have a recording device, he'd build one. He scrutinized the family's newfangled gizmos, tinkering in his mother's living room and his father's garage. And then he took everything apart, things like the phonograph, the player piano, the telephone, and the radio. "Ma," his big brother hollered, "the kid's at it again." What a snitch. Just like my sister. "Leave him alone, Ralph," his mother said. "He's just trying to learn." Good for his mother. Dentist belt, flywheel, nail. Oh my goodness, he's really thinking through it. With a Cadillac flywheel, a dentist belt, a nail, and other pieces and parts, he built a recording lathe so he could record his music. He made recordings of his guitar strumming and harmonica humming, and then he played them back to figure out how to make the sound better. Soon he could whip out all sorts of knee-slapping hillbilly melodies. Everybody said he was super. But Lester wanted to be even better, but he wanted to play with both sides of the harmonica while he plucked the guitar. "You only have 2 arms, you goofus," Ralph said. "You can't flip the harmonica and play guitar at the same time." See, he's a simple-minded guy. The jealous older sibling. I know that too well. Everybody knows that's impossible. But Lester thought it was possible. So when Ralph left for work at the neighborhood dry cleaning store, Lester picked up a coat hanger left lying around the house. He fitted the hanger over his shoulders. He shaped the other ends to fit the harmonica so he could flip the instrument with his chin and play twice as many sounds. Hot dog! It worked. He could hum and strum at the same time. Awesome. At 13 years old, Lester called himself Red Hot Red. He landed local gigs by playing his guitar harmonica act and telling funny stories. He performed for tips at nearby movie theaters, clubs, and drive-ins. Folks who sat up front loved the act, but people in the back complained. "We can't hear you, Red. Nobody in the back can hear you play." Lester wanted his music heard up front, in back, and in the way, way back. His tips depended on it. Yeah, that's true. So here comes the next part of his invention. Oh boy. So he thought and thought until a solution struck him. He could make it louder. All he had to do was borrow a few things from home: a cinder block, a broomstick, a telephone, and a radio. Yep. He stuffed the broom handle into the cinder block and mounted the telephone mouthpiece to the top of the broom handle. There, a microphone stand. Then he wired it to the radio to create the speaker for his sound. Lester sang and played his harmonica into his homemade mic. Sure enough, the tune boomed from the speaker. This kid was made to do all this. Hooray! Folks in the front could hear, folks in the back could hear, but a heckler in the way, way back sent a note to Lester. It read, "Red, your voice is fine, your harmonica's fine, and your jokes are funny, but the guitar is not loud enough." Uh-oh. That means he's giving him another run for his money. Beekman's Famous Barbecue. Reminds me of Gus's. Okay, so what's next? Lester rummaged through the garage until a brilliant idea zipped to mind: to take the tone arm off his father's phonograph player and jam the arm with the needle into the top of the guitar. He taped everything in place and wired it to his dad's radio. "Geez," Ralph said, staring at the ruined phonograph. "What'd you do that for? If it plays a phonograph record, it must play a guitar, right? They both vibrate." He snatched up the contraption and headed back to Beekman's Barbecue to test it in front of a crowd. It worked. Harmonica sound floated from one radio speaker. Zzz, buzz. Guitar strumming amplified from the other radio speaker. Strum, twang, strum, twang. Everyone could hear. It was a smashing success. Everyone, almost. The problem wasn't just that the strings were vibrating. The hollow space in the middle of the guitar vibrated too, making the speaker echo and screech. Uh-oh. Feedback. Nobody likes feedback. Lester knew he could play cleaner tones if he could just stop the guitar from vibrating. How though? It bamboozled him. He tried stuffing the hollow center with rags, socks, and a tablecloth. Nope. Next, he filled it with plaster of Paris. That was a bust and a ruined guitar. Lester had one more idea. He borrowed a wagon and convinced 4 friends to trek down a steep riverbank to the railroad tracks to help him. There he found a 2.5 foot piece of discarded steel rail. Oh, this is an interesting concept. Yep. What are they going to do? Got another idea. Back at home, he attached the guitar string to the rail and placed a telephone microphone under the string to pick up the sound vibrations. "Now what are you doing?" Ralph asked. See, he's so jealous. He wish he had his high-level thinking. "There's only one way to do this," Lester said. "Steel is dense and free of vibrations I don't want." He gave his steel guitar a strum. Wah, 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 bow, chicka, bow, wow. Yowzer, Ralph said. But his mom, who usually thought Lester was the cat's meow, shook her head and frowned. "That'll be the day when you see a cowboy sitting on a horse playing a railroad track. All the cowboys in the movies and traveling shows played guitars. Shucks, guitars and cowboys went together like peanut butter and jelly. If a cowboy wouldn't like this idea, then nobody would. Rats." But Lester pushed on. He tweaked and tinkered until he found a way to amplify his acoustic guitar without echo and feedback. Twang! It sounded okay, good even, but it wasn't a rich sound he'd heard the steel rail play. He continued practicing, and when he turned 17, his mom let him take his act on the road. Rhubarb Red. At 19 years old, he shortened his name from Lester Pulfus to Les Paul. Oh, that's his real name. A few years after that, he formed a band called the Les Paul Trio. He played hillbilly music in the daytime as Rhubarb Red, and later learned blues and jazz at night as the Wizard of Waukesha. That's a cool title. He swapped licks on his guitar in Chicago and then in New York beside some of the greatest musicians of the time. The New York style of music got Les's mind ticking again. He loved the variety of sounds, the vibrato of clarinets, the badum-tish of the drums, the blurp of the horns, but the twang of his guitar still wasn't loud enough. So we had Louis Armstrong, Charlie Christian, Art Tatum, Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, and Coleman Hawkins. And then, of course, you had the Les Paul Trio. Awesome. By the time Les turned 24, he'd become a hotsy-totsy musician. Even President Franklin D. Roosevelt loved his tunes when Les and his Razzmatazz Jazz Trio performed at the White House. Still, Les dreamed of the sound of that iron rail. How could he make an electric guitar that held a note like that? The question prickled and pestered in his mind until 1941. When he was 26 years old. He didn't have equipment or a workshop, nothing. But he was red hot red. Rhubarb Red, the Wizard of Waukesha. He could do anything that he set his mind to. That night, the night watchman at the Epiphone Guitar Factory let him in on Sundays. There, he took a 4x4 piece of solid pine hooked on an Epiphone neck, his own homemade pickups, and guitar strings. His solid body electric guitar looked like a log with strings on it, so he called it the log. And when he gave it a strum, wow, 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 bow, chicka, wow, bow, wow. Hot dog, Les said. It was the best thing he'd heard. There's the neck. There's the 4x4 tailpiece. pickups that he made, and then the strings. Oh my goodness, he is really a wizard. Okay, here he is playing his guitar. He took it to the swanky nightclub to show off his new sound. But when he played the log in front of a crowd, they didn't applaud. They didn't boo. Folks just looked at one another. What is this thing? Huh? How could the audience not hear what he heard? But Les's shoulders didn't sink. His eyes didn't get stingy. He did not give up. Maybe the audience hears with its eyes? Les returned to the Epiphone factory and told the watchman, "Everyone's confused. They don't know it's a guitar." Oh, I see. It just looks strange, so that he has to put a body on it. Yeah. They're like, what is this thing he's playing? This log. But it wasn't a regular guitar. It was a solid body. Wop, wop, wop. Bow, chicka, bow, wow. It purred. It hummed. It twanged in all the right ways. Finally, the sound he dreamed of had come alive, and the crowd went wild. All he had to do was just put a guitar body on it. No matter what anyone told Les, he never stopped working on all kinds of sound. His hard work earned him a place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Grammy Hall of Fame, and many other halls of fame. He also received the Trustees Award from the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. At 89, Les Paul was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. When he walked on stage to receive his award, noise erupted and boomed from the crowd. Clappity, clap, clap, boom, roar, huzzah, hooray, hurrah. Yeah. He truly was an inventor. Very talented. Les Paul. There's that guitar, that iconic guitar. And it's nice and heavy, and they're fun to play. Hot dog, Les thought. Yeah. Okay. From the author. It's only fair to mention that in the early 1930s, a musician named George Beauchamp and an electrical engineer named Adolf Rickenbacker teamed up to create the first commercially viable amplifiable electric guitar, the frying pan. To many, Les is considered the father of the solid body electric guitar, the U.S. patent number 18,680, a design many musicians consider unmatched in sound and prowess. The National Inventors Hall of Fame lists Les Paul as the man who introduced the world to the solid body electric guitar, a pioneering instrument that transformed popular music. Perseverance is one of the most admirable attributes about Lester William Pulfus. Les never learned how to read sheet music. He spent his life playing by ear, which meant he had to listen carefully and then figure out how to play the sounds. It's hard to believe his piano teacher really sent that discouraging note home, but according to Les, the entire note said, "Your boy Lester will never learn music, so save your money. Please don't send him for any more lessons." Fortunately, young Les had grit and a mother who absolutely believed in him. It didn't matter to his mother that Les disassembled home gadgets, punched holes in the player piano roll, or even that he cut off a bit of the staircase. His mother thought everything he did was brilliant. As the Les Paul Foundation's website notes, each night when young Lester headed up the stairs to bed, he would play his wooden xylophone, which is how he described the vertical planks along the stairs. Lester explained there was a problem. The xylophone was out of tune, so I had to tune it. I cut the bottom of the plank that was out of tune. Les shared that his mother thought he was a genius for being able to tune the staircase. In the 1940s, Leo Fender and Les Paul were dear friends. Fender and Paul Bigsby regularly hung out with Les in his backyard. Les showed them the log. The three inventors knew the solid body electric guitar was the future, and they talked about it all the time. Fender invited Les to partner in producing an electric guitar. Les declined. He wanted to hold out for a deal with Gibson. In 1948, Fender went on to create the Telecaster. Oh, I love the Telecaster. First called the Broadcaster. After Fender's success with the Telecaster, Gibson finally teamed up with Les and in 1952 produced the Gibson Les Paul solid body electric guitar. As for Paul Bigsby, he also built custom electric guitars in the 40s, but he gained fame for the Bigsby vibrato tailpieces. Les's desire for the perfect sound didn't stop at the guitar. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website says he also refined the technology of sound recording, developing revolutionary engineering techniques such as close miking, echo delay, overdubbing, and multi-tracking. The Les Paul Foundation notes Les Paul's contributions to the music industry are legion. Tape delay, phasing effects, multi-track recording, and overdubbing or sound on sound are all techniques that have helped to evolve music and recording technology over the past half century. Of these, his sound on sound was the most revolutionary. Never before has recording allowed or been used, making multiple recorded tracks that could have been played in tandem, creating a whole new sonic world for musicians and engineers to explore. Musicians of various backgrounds sing the praises of Les Paul. In 1988, when B.B. King and Les Paul performed together at Brooklyn Academy, B.B. King said, "Finally, we get together and I get a chance to meet what I think is a legend in his own time." B.B. later remembered that meeting, calling Les one of his heroes. In an interview for Chasing Sound, Bonnie Raitt talks about how much she appreciates Les Paul's invention of multi-tracking and says, "I mean that to me, the greatest thing invented, multi-tracking. We couldn't have records without it. I couldn't write music without it." Guitarist Rick Derringer said he was really an innovator in modern recording techniques. It's almost like he was the person who invented the sound of today's pop records. Les never stopped pursuing the contraptions of his imagination, but he didn't stop when he was almost electrocuted himself in 1941 and had to be bandaged from head to toe. He just worked harder. When he shattered his right arm in a car accident in 1948, doctors wanted to amputate, but with the can-do attitude he had all his life, he convinced them to set his arm at the right angle so he could keep whipping out licks on his guitar. In the 1950s, he created the Les Pulverizer, a remote control attached to his guitar to let him play pre-recorded layers of songs, so that during live performances he could produce his multi-track sound. In simple terms, he could play several parts of music at the same time. And in fact, his song, Lover, features Les playing 8 different guitar parts. He used his revolutionary sound recording methods to produce songs for Capitol Records right in his living room, in hotel rooms, and in bathrooms. Furthermore, Les designed the 8-track tape recorder marketed by Ampex. Oh, I had that 8-track. Those were fun. Not only was he a great inventor, Les Paul was an incredible guitarist. Lester the Kid, who would never learn music, went on to win 7 Grammy Awards. Les Paul's discoveries in sound changed the landscape of music. Casual music listeners may not know this, but most accomplished musicians will tell you music as we hear it would not exist without Les Paul's perseverance and groundbreaking innovations and inventions. Well, he was definitely a man who was ahead of his own time. That was a great little book. And great illustrations by Brett Hellquist as well. He did a lot of kids' books. Yeah, it's a great book.